Good afternoon, everybody. This is David Searns with Haley Marketing, and welcome to today's special edition of Lunch with Haley. So, Matt, not one we were planning to do right now on recruitment marketing, but it seems like there's been so much change in the world that it needed to be done because, well, we're going to look at the data in just a minute, but I know you already did LinkedIn Live this morning. And what kinds of things were you hearing from people about recruiting?
Hi, David. Good afternoon, everyone. We're hearing challenges. We're hearing just basic challenges in trying to find candidates to fill all of the open jobs that are available, especially production, manufacturing, warehouse side. And it's a challenge at all steps of that candidate journey, from getting applications to onboarding to avoiding ghosting at any part of the process. So it's a huge challenge for the industry. And if any of the engagement with content we've seen or just conversations with companies in the industry shows it's a huge challenge for everyone.
So that's what we're going to talk about today, is just how to address the challenges, not just sourcing, but sourcing through getting people to show up and keep showing up. And I think Matt and I are both going to say the same thing. There's not a silver bullet. There's no magic wand we have that can change the realities of the world. But what you're going to see in today's presentation that we put together is a lot of ideas, a lot of different strategies. And I'll say to everybody ahead of time, if you want to take notes as we go, you'll probably hear some things that may not be on slides. But if you don't, the slides, we are recording this. It will be all available at lunchwithhaley.com. It should be up on the site in just a couple of days. All right, Matt, let's jump into some of the details. So, what the heck happened on March 11th, Matt?
It felt like deja vu all over again, I think, to use the infamous quote where March 13th, 2020 was a little bit different, probably more serious level, when the world stopped. And March 11th is when, the stimulus bill, I think, was officially signed into law, but we started to see the data change instantly, where I like to track data from a conversion percentage on this slide, which means the number of times someone clicks on a jobs and ends up applying. And that line of demarcation from, beginning of March, comparing that to the last 4 weeks or so, there's been a 19% decrease in the last 3 to 4 weeks of people actually converting after clicking on jobs. And it might not seem like that much when you look at this percentage on the screen, when it was going around, 11, 10%. Now it's down to, 8%. But if you think about it, for every 100 clicks, that's 3 fewer applications. That's 2 to 3 fewer applications. That's a big drop when it gets expanded over the thousands of clicks per month. So we see conversion percentage decreasing. And then on the next slide, naturally, cost per application is increasing. And this one's even more, I think, impactful, of 45. I think it's, the last number I saw was around 52% increase of cost per application, where we were hovering around $4, which was still high for the industry, but it kind of felt like a new normal. And now it's jumping way up there, and it's going up how you want your financial portfolio to increase, but it's not going up how we want applications to increase. So there's a number of factors that are causing that data to hurt us here. The issue at hand is really a number of different factors that are hurting us with the application conversion percentage and in the cost per application. So the data, I think, shows us there's a lot more manufacturing jobs, production jobs on Indeed than there were compared to February 2020. Indeed has this awesome website. It's called hiringlab.org. And the last time they updated this data was data from the end of March. And just on Indeed, which isn't the end all be all, but it's a really good resource for this type of information, there's 52.7% more manufacturing jobs on March 26 versus February 2020. That's pre-pandemic. That's not of this year. That's of the month of February in 2020. That's a huge increase in the number of jobs. That's one factor coming into play here. The next factor is there's a lot of reasons for people not to go to work, and a lot of it's coming from the government. It's the stimulus payments is really what, I like to say, turned that spigot and made it dry up a little bit more in the middle of March with $1,400 per person. And we can all do the math and see how a family of 3, 4, 5, 6 people received a big chunk of change in the middle of March. The extended unemployment went through until September, which has been in effect for a number of months. There's a $10,000 plus of unemployment benefits aren't taxed. There's a health insurance subsidy. So a lot of increasing incentives not to work, combining that with the ongoing safety questions of, am I safe in the workplace? Am I not safe in the workplace? Childcare is obviously a challenge. The recession hit, the females and the moms a lot harder than it did the male side of the market. So those are two other challenges coming together. And like I said, the results of 45-50% increase in cost per apply in commercial staffing. And really at the end of the day, it's economics 101 of, there's more jobs, there's the same or fewer amount of people looking for jobs. So that's a big challenge. And now, David's going to talk here about what we have all this data. I'm going to be the data person on the call a lot today. What's all that data implying?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, if you think about that math, 45% increase in cost per apply basically means, I'm going to round up to 50 here, but basically means you're getting 2 applications now every time you used to get 3. And so you're getting 1/3 fewer job applications for whatever you're spending on your job advertising, or you've got to increase your spend by as much as 50% to get the same number of applications. It's huge. And one of the things we're seeing, and I know Matt's going to talk more about this later, is the new effective minimum wages. So I found a government website that looked at the effective hourly minimum wage in several mid-Atlantic states. And you can see on screen here, when you add in the average hourly wage of a worker plus the $300 extra incentive, people are better off staying on unemployment if a job is paying less than the numbers you see. So in Maryland, it's almost $14 an hour. What's the lowest one here? North Carolina at $12.09. So anything that's less than that, people literally are making more per hour sitting at home. But then factor in other things: transportation, childcare, lunches, etc. And we're seeing in a lot of markets that there's an effective minimum wage as high as $16 an hour. And what do we mean by effective minimum wage? It means at what wage do your ads have to be to actually get people to click apply? So Matt did an analysis last summer, and that was about the same. It was about $16 to $17 an hour, and it varied by market. So it's not going to be the same for everybody listening today. But any job that you post that's below this effective minimum wage in your market means you're going to see what doesn't mean you'll get no applications, but you're going to get very few, and the candidates you're going to get are likely to be lower quality. If you get above that number, you're more likely to get applies. It's not guaranteed. You're more likely. But what is also interesting is there's a number at the upper end, which is once you get above a certain hourly rate, you don't get dramatically more applications. And last summer, we saw it was in about the $18 level in most markets, where if you paid more than that, it didn't really make a big impact. So you had to have this effective weight you knew for your market. We'll talk a little bit later about how to use this data with your clients. Also, one of our team members, when we were getting ready for this webinar, shared an article with us from the Wall Street Journal that says the numbers of Americans with jobs right now is down 8.4 million from a year ago. But the number one reason people are unemployed, besides the stimulus payments, is fear. 4.2 Americans said they won't go to work because they're afraid of getting or spreading COVID. That's half the people who are for the jobs that are available. Even with the fiscal and monetary stimulus, the labor market may take a long while to get under control, and especially as the news, which is overwhelmingly negative, more so than the science, but the news is increasing people's anxiety about work. So what do? We'll talk about that. But another piece of data is, this is something to talk to your clients about. According to a study by ZipRecruiter, 60% of applicants would rather work remote, but just 9% of vacancies allow it. Now, I understand if you're working in a warehouse, that's not going to be a remote job. but a very small percentage of staffing jobs, this came up at the executive forum this year, a very small percentage of staffing jobs allow for remote work. And that will be one of many strategies for talking to your clients about changing the nature of how work gets done to increase the candidate pool. Now, another site I found for figuring this out, and I've got the URL right here, is Forbes website. You can just plug in your state, and it shows you what the average weekly benefit is for somebody in your state. You divide it by the hours worked, that tells you your effective minimum wage in your states, minimum wage in your state. So it's a long URL. Again, the slides will be available, but you can look at Forbes.com, and it's the unemployment calculator by state stimulus bill. Just helps you figure out where do you stand in your state. What does this all mean? Well, people want to get back to normal life, but they're not ready. And in many cases, they're not able. I know here in upstate New York, where we're located, schools are finally just talking about how they're going to come back to 5 days a week. So parents are starting to see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And about as soon as the kids get back to school, it's going to be summer vacation. And who knows what summer camps are going to look like this year. Until we get to enough people being vaccinated, it's going to be hard to have a normal workforce. Matt said this many times. The supply of jobs is greater than the candidates who are demanding to work, that are available for work. And nothing we're going to tell you today is going to change the reality that for the next several months, probably through September, the cost of recruiting is going to be higher. You've got more jobs to fill, less available talent. There is no way for us to increase the candidate pool quickly enough. So we've got to look at what other things that you can do. And to fill the open orders right now, there's two primary strategies. Number one is incentives. How do you incentivize your talent? We'll talk about some of those in a second. And the second is, how do you create compelling reasons to work? So we're looking right now to increase the size of the talent pool by getting more people willing to go to work. So in terms of incentives, the most obvious one is pay rate. You got to look at that effective minimum wage in your market, and you can test this for yourself. You can advertise certain jobs. If you've got some lower level jobs at $11, $12, $13, $14, $15, $16 an hour, post them to Indeed, post them to ZipRecruiter, and watch your application rates and correlate the jobs with pay rate. So you can sit down with your clients and say, look, when we advertise a job at $13.50, this is how many applications we get. When we're at $15.50, this is how many applications we get. So if we can't get applications, we can't fill your jobs. So we have to be at the rate that gets applications. So you need to gather that data for your local market. The Indeed resource that Matt suggested earlier can also help you to gather some of that data. How about bonuses? I know some staffing companies use them, some do not, but there's lots of ways to incentivize people to work and to keep working. So a sign-on bonus, an assignment completion bonus, some sort of measurement of quality, productivity, employer satisfaction score resulting in a bonus. Looking at a longevity bonus, so you re-incentivize people who go on a second and a third and a fourth assignment with your firm, and really revamping your referral bonus programs. And then another type of incentive is benefits. The obvious one, people need healthcare more than ever right now, or a health savings account, possibly a 401k. Now, usually these benefits are not very much consumed, particularly by light industrial temporaries. However, right now, when fear is an overriding factor to people deciding not to go to work, health coverage can help mitigate that fear and get more people willing to go to work. And then there's training programs and potentially compensated training, so that if you can teach people to develop new skills and permanently increase their pay rate, that's going to be worth more to them in the long run than the temporary unemployment benefits they're getting. So we're seeing more and more staffing companies getting into some form of training, whether it's basic skills training like how to drive a forklift, or it may be more soft skills training like we're teaching people how to be better communicators, better in the workplace, better employees. Those kinds of training can make an impact on helping people be employable, not just now, but over the next several months and years. And by selling the benefit of training, you may be able to get some people off the sidelines now. How about compelling reasons to work? Put in parentheses here, maybe these are compelling. It's going to be different for different people. Right now, we're dealing a lot of mental health issues in the workplace. Burnout, stress is higher than it's ever been. But the flip side to that is not working is actually really depressing. Most people's greatest sense of self-worth comes from their job. Pride, well-being, taking care of family, taking care of yourself, treating yourself comes from having a paycheck. So some of your temporaries will feel better mentally by working, and that's going to be worth something to a segment of your workforce. You can sell the fact that if you want to get a temp to perm job, temp to hire, this is probably the best time to get in the market because your clients are desperate for people. Some of them are doing direct sourcing programs because they don't even want to wait for staffing companies. They're doing everything possible to fill their job openings, which means they're more likely to be bringing people on permanently that are good workers. So if you've got temporaries that are working as temps because they want full-time employment and they want to have a paycheck beyond September, now is the time to get employed as a temporary. Also, you probably have the highest chance of strong pay rates right now, and the best available jobs are going to go to the people who are in the workforce. So we want to really be selling the fact that if you get in the workforce now, you're going to get the jobs that have the highest pay, the best opportunities for advancement, the best clients, the best shifts, the best locations. We can give you more because we have so many job openings available, and we're going to put our best people in the best jobs and kind of work down the priority list. The last jobs are going to get filled with the worst jobs. That's also something to talk to the clients that represent those worst jobs. Only a certain percent of jobs are going to get filled in this kind of a labor market. So on the client side, sell them on the value of improving their jobs, but on the candidate side, let them know you've got the pick of the litter right now. And for some people, they want to avoid gaps in their resume. Sitting on unemployment when they go back to work in September or October is not going to benefit their paycheck after coming off unemployment, because it's going to lead to the employers to having lots of questions about the workers' quality and reliability. And then there's some that are just kind of sort of silly, but very real reason. We've joked with a bunch of clients, this is the time to run ads on Facebook targeting spouses of employees, saying, get your spouse off the couch. You're sick of them being at home. But the practical reality is people have been cooped up a long time, and simply getting out of the house, having more normalcy to life, getting back to work is another compelling reason for some people to work. Now, if you look at this list, these bullets don't apply all things to all people. But as you're advertising jobs, as you're talking to clients, as you're thinking about social media, all of these different bullets add up to different messages that will appeal to different segments of the workforce that you can then target. All right, Matt, so let's now get into a little more depth, some strategies to look at for this year.
Yeah, thanks, David. Those were some great overarching areas. Now I think this will really help us dig into some more the strategies and tactics that can help. And the first place to start is they are out there, the active job seekers. And this first point about advertising your best jobs, or if it's your best clients and highest pay rates, from a client I work with where they advertise. They were advertising jobs just in warehouse manufacturing in the scientific fields in March. And obviously they started to really struggle end of March. So we pivoted and switched in the strategy to go in the beginning of April to shift some of the budget from warehouse over to admin jobs, because admin clerical, it's still increasing in cost per applications, but not as much as we're seeing a lot on the warehouse side. So their application costs were still pretty high in the beginning of April. As I'm looking at it, I'm getting a little stressed out on how we're doing to help them. But an email came through on Friday from the client, and she said, we saw some of the results I was hoping for with our adjusted budget, and we successfully filled some of the jobs too. So adjusting their strategy to focusing on their best jobs, the jobs they could fill, it was a mind shift change to where we're advertising a smaller subset of jobs, but it worked for them. So I think really focusing on those best jobs to overcome that data David shared earlier about the minimum wage and those challenges can really help you. This next bullet, I think, is something we're really focusing on. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
That's okay, but I just want to interrupt for a second. Before we move on, one of the things that I want to mention is I know a lot of staffing companies tend to be reticent about actually promoting who their clients are, and they're advertising for fear of either the client doesn't allow us to do it or my competitor's going to go call on them. However, where you can, and you don't want to do this without permission, but where you can, if your client is a well-known brand, a well-known employer in your marketplace, you want to leverage their strength and their employment brand to help improve your own, because they may be better known than yours. So co-promoting jobs with your key clients, yes, it does tell the competitor where you have a client, but it may bring in many more candidates. And ultimately, if you get the candidates and you fill the job orders quickly with good people, the competitor doesn't have a chance of winning that client away from you. All right, Matt, that sort of ties into our next points.
It does. With, these two really tie together with something that's really focusing on is building that employment brand. And you can showcase that through social proof of reviews and testimonials and awards, because there's a couple of ways we're really starting to focus on this internally at Haley Marketing with building your employment brand of why should someone work for your staffing agency versus the competitor down the street. We'll dig into that a little bit later, but also why should someone consider working in the staffing industry? If we're struggling to find candidates who are already considering staffing, how do we build that brand and showcase it through social media and other tactics to people who may never have worked in staffing, or maybe worked a few years ago and now is the time they're coming back to the workforce and a temporary job might be right for them. So really building that brand and showcasing your 5-star reviews, your 10.0, if it's a rating on your Facebook, Indeed, all of those different places, the testimonials that showcase how you helped someone get through the pandemic, local awards that helped you, all of those different areas will strengthen that social proof. And really it can help you increase your visibility, because someone might not be working today. Someone might be looking for a job today. That'll help you increase the visibility of someone searching for a job right now. But also when candidates are ready to go back to the workforce, you're staying in front of them all the time. You're staying top of mind. You're going to be the first company they hopefully apply to a job, apply for one of your jobs, or pick up the phone and call, or walk into your office, because you had the short-term plan, but you also had the long-term plan of increasing that visibility online or in the real world of just showcasing your brand locally. So the challenge here is to build that irresistible employment brand, make people want to work for you, and really figure out those reasons, share them. We'll talk about the employee value proposition a little bit later, but that's the challenge here with the active job seekers. The next area, it's vitally important, is your current temporary employees. We can't lose those current employees. They're as valuable as anything right now. There's a lot of talk about candidate automation to keep engagement high and boost redeployment through texting, through emails, through phone calls, in increasing all of those touch points to show your employees you care. And it doesn't just have to be, hey, we have an open job, are you interested? Think about different workflows of text messages, or that they want to hear from your team to show that, you're thinking of them. If it, could be something, just we want to hope you have a nice day, or how was your first day on the job, or, when it's coming up to the end of that assignment, checking in with them to see what they learned at that job, or just making sure you didn't just send them on the assignment day one and forget about them at the end of the assignment. So anything you can do with automation, because it takes a lot of time to send text messages to all your employees out on assignment. The technology's there to help.
And Matt, if I can jump in on that one,
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've seen from the candidate perspective is they get sick of that every communication is just about a job opening. Yes, they want to know about jobs. Yes, they want to know about better pay rates, but they're your employees, and they also want to know that you care about them and you're sharing interesting things. And it can be as simple as remembering somebody on their birthday or their service anniversary, or that it's Memorial Day and we want to do something that just to communicate about how much your organization cares for people who have served. So show that your brand, show what you're all about, not just to your internal employees who work inside your building, but to all of your temporary associates, and treat them like part of the company family.
I think these next couple of bullet points, this third one really, I think is something we need to do a better job of is, sign-on bonuses are always great and always catch the eye, but I think David talked about earlier, longevity bonuses or completing assignments that help, why does the new employee always just get the bonus? Why can't the current team members receive incentives? So whatever you can do to create those types of compensation plans will help with reducing your turnover. And through that automation we talked about earlier, if you can make sure when assignments are coming to an end with clearly defined end dates, you can help with redeploying someone. So maybe if their assignment's ending at the end of this week and that, you're not waiting until Monday to find them that new assignment. It's automated to help check in, to find out how you can help them have that assignment. If it ends here on April 16th and then someone has to go to work a few days later, you're ready to help them find that next assignment right away. And lastly, be proactive. It's, there's a lot of open jobs, but if you have A talent, or even if you have the B talent available, a forklift driver or skills trade or any type of different availability for your talent that for active clients that you can help redeploy them, skill market them and show them to the available clients that you have, or prospect clients even, that you have this talent available, and be able to skill market them to keep them to redeploy. And wrapping up the slide, like we said at the beginning, the challenge is never to lose a qualified candidate. That's been the talking point for a long time here is, we can get candidates, but we can't get qualified candidates. So they're borderline, they're like gold right now.
And Matt, I was thinking about, like, as you were talking about compensation programs that offer incentives for completing assignments or redeployment, if you think about the cost of advertising to get one new candidate you place, and let's say Matt, you mentioned earlier, cost of an application was at $3 and change, and it's gone to $4 and $5, in some cases more than $8 an application. And if you filled, 1 out of every 10 applications got placed, now you've got an $80 cost for a placeable candidate. Well, what if you gave a $50 bonus to somebody who takes the next assignment? Now I've got zero cost for getting the next candidate, and I'm giving a gain share, 30 for me, 50 for the candidate, for taking that next assignment. I mean, there's just ways to think about recruiting differently and redeploying some of those recruiting dollars to improve retention.
That's a great idea. We definitely have to think about it differently in these challenging recruiting markets for sure. And the next slide is, when we talk to, you hear from staffing agencies all the time, referrals are always, a solid third, or feels like that's a pretty strong percentage of their employees out on assignment. So what can you do to offer better incentives? Is it, more money? Is it, just what does your candidates or the workers in your market, what are they looking to submit a referral? And when someone, goes out on assignment, or maybe when they reach a longevity bonus, you help, you give an even bigger referral bonus. So just think about different ways the incentives could be. We've seen TVs, we've seen obviously, gas money or bus passes or transportation credits, anything out there that's just a little bit different that could stand out from the crowd. And I think one company I've heard of, talked about even this next bullet point is, doesn't just have to be your employees. Could anyone submit a referral? Why does it need to be only someone on your payroll right now? To David's point earlier about thinking differently, if I know someone who'd be a really great fit for a staffing job and I send it into a local staffing agency, why would I not be able to receive that referral bonus just because I don't work for them originally? It could be a really great way to win some business and get some more candidates that are qualified to send out on assignment. And we have to share that message everywhere. We have to ask it, we have to share it on social, if it's email, if it's through text messages, if there's ways even in the local media to get it out through press releases, or maybe stories on the local news to combat that negative coverage. Hey, we're have a great referral program, or just anything that can help showcase those referral programs, because that always feels like one of the challenges is to get that information out there. And the challenge is get your current employees to become your advocates. It's a great way to build that social proof, to build that employer branding, because we trust each other. We trust reviews for, hotels or restaurants. So if your team can go out there and be advocates for you, that's a great bonus.
Matt, another one you made me think of when you talked about non-traditional places to get referrals is I know a lot of staffing companies will build relationships with religious organizations. So going to a local church and actually telling them, look, for everybody you know that you refer that we place, we'll donate $50 to the church. If you think about all the nonprofit organizations that might come into contact with candidates, we do work with some of the Goodwill offices, and many Goodwills run staffing companies, but Goodwill as an organization, their mission is to help people find work. And so there are other socially oriented organizations whose mission is to help people find meaningful employment. Find those organizations, partner with them, and you can have a win-win offering them referral incentives. So lots of ways outside of the traditional. We just talked to our current temporary employees.
On the flip side of your current employees, what can you do to steal from your competitors? And the first point here, David will talk about it in a few minutes, but develop that employee value proposition, a stronger one than your competitors. And the basic way to think of it is why. Why work for your company versus someone else? What can you do to win them away? And a great way to share that EVP is direct market to them wherever you can. If it's online, the in-person advertising, that in the real world, and then also if you can set up a geofencing campaign, which obviously follow employment law. We're not lawyers at Hillary Marketing. We're required to say that, but follow the law to make sure you're creating the right online advertising programs. To maybe you can set up your advertisements to show it, work sites of your competitors' clients, or just areas where your competitors' candidates are spending time to showcase your awesome jobs that you're advertising for, maybe with higher pay rates or better benefits or the sign-on longevity bonuses, to really showcase the benefits, but also showcase that EVP of why. Why should they work for you and change their job that maybe they're not happy with right now? And get that information out there as often and in different formats as possible, because you never know where people are spending time. So it's important to share that as many places as possible. And the last part here on the strategies for recruiting is maximize your applicant tracking system. We talked about that a couple slides ago, but it's your unique database. No one else has that database. And if you can reactivate, re-engage that talent, it's probably less expensive than acquiring a new application on the job boards right now from an active candidate. And one of the best things you can do is to maintain that database by verifying contact info, making sure job skills are up to date, or what's their availability, because Matt may have applied for a job with you in 2018. My email may have changed, or my phone number may have changed, or I may have new training. Now I can have a different skill on the job, or my schedule may have changed. So it's important to have the right contact information and availability in your ATS to know who could be a good fit for your open jobs. We obviously, building off of that point, is nurture those relationships. Like we talked about earlier, don't just send job offers, high paying, $15 an hour, text back for assignment info. Try to make it personalized. Find ways to automate all of that, to make it personalized automation, which is tough, but the right systems out there can help do that through email, through texting. You can get back to sending information through the physical mail, because I'm sure there's not a lot of mail going through right now, but anything you can do to start that nurturing relationships with candidates, then follow up with phone calls too with your team. I was talking to someone last week. They said they hired someone new in a part-time role. Their job was to literally call almost everyone in their ATS from a certain date to connect with them. And it sounds like a lot of work, but I'm sure it helped them reconnect with their audience. And lastly on this slide is, ask for referrals with those people in your ATS. Continue to keep referrals at the top of your talking points with people you're connecting with. And we go even more in depth with a lot of this reactivation on the latest episode of The Secrets of Staffing Success, which is getting released tomorrow on April 14th, with 9 ways to drive candidate re-engagement and redeployment. Myself and Brad Biley from the digital team dig into some more ways to reactivate that talent. Now I think David's going to shift over here to, what does your company really need to do? What are those actual physical next steps you need to take?
All right, so let's put some of those high-level strategies into practical terms to put them into action. So Matt mentioned it, the EVP, your employee or employment value proposition. It's about clearly defining your why. Why would a job seeker, why would a temporary associate choose your company over anybody else? Not just over another staffing company, but over the local employers in your market. So why would someone choose you? Is it just the compensation? Is it the benefits? Is it the way you treat people? Is it how responsive you are? If you're not sure, have your recruiters, when they're talking to your temporary associates, talk to them. Why did they choose you? Why do they like you better or worse than the competition? Look at the reviews you've received online and what they say about you. Ideally, you're trying to find a value proposition that's going to resonate with people who are working as temps, as well as people that Matt mentioned earlier who aren't inside the staffing industry. I don't know what the current data is, but the age-old data is that 4 out of 5 candidates do not think of a staffing company when they're looking for employment. So that means 80% of the people who are actually active job seekers aren't thinking of you. So we want an EVP to resonate with those 80% or a fraction of those 80% to say, no, here's why we're your career partner. Here's why we can help you get better paying jobs, get hired faster, find employers you'd rather work for, find jobs that aren't advertised anywhere else. You need to define that why for your ideal candidate. Also, defining all the reasons why someone would want to work right now. Your EVP isn't just about why you're a great employer, but because of the incentives that we discussed earlier, go back to that earlier list and take a look at all the reasons someone might want to get off the couch. Why is it time to re-enter the workforce? And make sure that that is part of your messaging going out right now. And before I move on, Matt, we had a question, someone asking about the reactivation webinar. Julia, that actually is our podcast, Secrets of Staffing Success, the Insights edition of the show. So if you go to your favorite place to listen to podcasts, whether it's on iTunes or Google Play or somewhere else, you can also visit HaleyMarketing.com and look for the Secrets of Staffing Success podcast and subscribe, and you can get all of our shows. All right, Matt, but how about the data collection? What can people do to collect data right now to know where that minimum wage is?
Yeah, we're going to share few examples here of different data you can collect on your end. And this first one was from analysis we did last summer, but it's a really good example of the pay rates or types of jobs that, what's working in your industry and your geographic market. So for this client last summer, it was their $12 to $14 an hour jobs. It was, they started to see a sharp decrease, 45% in conversion, and then their application costs were up by 62%. You take it up to the jobs that were a couple dollars an hour higher at $15 to $16, still pretty big changes. It was 27% less conversion and 20% increase in costs. But then their tipping point was $17 an hour. And really just a change in $1 an hour was their conversion increased by 25%. So more people were applying for their jobs, and their application costs were actually decreasing by 33%. So this is one example, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is the data you can take to your clients if you have it, or if you work with someone that can share it with you to showcase and say, we're not getting applications or workers for your jobs because people just don't want to work for these hourly rates right now. And it can be really impactful. The next slide shows from a client we work with literally the same picker-packer job they have from this past month. It was from March, and they posted it for 3 different times. And you can see in there the time frame of that March 11th when a lot of the job market changed. They were doing pretty well with $4 an application and 13% conversion. That's where we want to be. But then even that next week, a lot fewer applications, costs more than doubled, and their conversion rate actually dropped by in half from 13 to 6.5%. And then even the next week, the end of the March, it started to trickle back up a little bit, but their costs were still very high. And this, is fantastic data to share with the client for this job who could say, okay, we had this job on March 3rd compared to March 27th. Our cost to get an application increased by $6 or $7 for literally the same exact job. That's the impact I know everyone on the call, a lot of people are feeling as well. And the last example here is similar to what we did in the first example here for data, but just comparing jobs $12 to $17 an hour to $18 an hour over. And those jobs of $17 or less, the application cost more than doubled in comparing the first part of March to the end of the month. But that for this client, that the tipping point was $18 an hour. So $1 different from the one we had a few slides ago. But when they increased their their wages to $18 an hour, their cost per application went up a little bit, but their conversion was pretty similar. It's still a little more expensive, but that's much more tolerable and much easier to swallow than the change you see above of doubling the cost per application and getting the same amount. So it's important to do that wage analysis when you have that data to show how candidates are engaging with your jobs. Now what you can do is take that data from your recruiting side of the business to the sales side, and David's going to dig into some sales strategies on how to use this and how to help your sales team.
So this is the time to really do better segmentation of your prospect list and to talk with your sales team about who are the employers we really want to be going after, and to go after those employers more aggressively, possibly even offering incentives to win their business. And why do you want those marquee employers? Well, you want them because being able to promote that you're filling their jobs will increase the response to your job advertising. If they've got higher paying jobs, or maybe they've got the same paying jobs, but they're just a really great company to work for. Maybe they're somebody everybody knows, and the perception is because everybody knows them, this place that they want to go work. Maybe they do a lot of temp to hire. You want those kinds of clients so that you can be advertising their jobs, because if those jobs will get a higher percentage response, you're still only placing the candidates, however many the client wanted to hire, and all the ones who didn't get placed are now available for other job opportunities. This is the time to sit down with your clients and talk to them about how to make every job they have more desirable. Show them the data that Matt was just showing you and say, here's the compensation where we see a tipping point. How close can we get to these numbers? If they can move, great. If they can't, then are there benefits that we can add in? Maybe there's non-cash benefits like schedule flexibility or remote work flexibility or more temp to hire opportunity. Maybe you could look at incentive pay. Again, sign-on, assignment completion, some sort of quality of work measurement, so that candidates who show up and finish assignments are rewarded for doing great work. Maybe that you could have a period of paid training so they could take someone's a less desirable candidate, and over the course of the first hours or day or a few days, get that candidate up to speed on the job, because now your client's got an employee who's been well trained and you've got someone who's been paid for the training period. Again, getting permission to use clients' names in job advertising. I know this is controversial. I know a lot of you are going to say, David, we'd never do that. But if your client's employment brand helps increase the number of applications you're getting, if using their logo on your website increases the number of applications you're getting, you want to be using it. I know I talked to someone, she was an executive recruiter, and she was very backwards for most executive recruiters. Most executive recruiters really focus on the client's invisible, that they're doing confidential searches and you only see the executive recruiter's name. Well, this lady flipped it on its head. She said, I'm invisible as the recruiter. She goes, I do recruiting for companies that don't want to do it themselves, but every one of my job ads features my client's value proposition, their logo, everything about them. Part of my value as a recruiter is to dig out the selling points of that organization and bring them front and center to the job advertising and to the recruiting efforts. So I flipped the typical recruiting model on its head as a way to differentiate how I recruit. Get that market data, make it look nice, bring it out in presentations and show people the dollars and cents. You pay X, you get Y number of applications. You pay Z, you're going to get A number of applications. You can show people the data in the market. It's not you saying it. Now it's the data talking. They may push back and say, well, your competitors will offer a lower bill rate. They'll do it for less. Okay, but if they can't find talent, it doesn't matter what their bill rate is. What matters is, can you get the people to fill the jobs? And this is the time to be talking about the client is, what's the cost of the job going unfilled per hour, per day, per week, per month in some cases? If that job's going unfilled and it's costing that employer a lot of money, throwing a little bit of that money back into a higher pay rate to get the job filled, especially for shorter term assignments, would be very worthwhile. Maybe you can work with clients on a higher pay rate but a reduced markup. And don't everybody put me in the bullseyes, crosshairs for saying this, but if you think about, let's say you were at a 40% markup and you were averaging making a net profit of $3 per hour. Well, let's say you add $2 an hour to your pay rate. You don't need to make the same markup to keep netting that same hourly profit. So you could recalculate and say, I'm willing to take a lower markup because I know, at least right now, we have to increase pay rates. And Mr. or Ms. Employer, I'm going to work with you to actually eat some of my normal costs so we can work together to get the candidates. Here's a really weird idea, but I actually had a client tell me this one. Reach out to competitors. They have the same problem you have. Now, in recruiting, people have done splits forever. In temporary staffing, it's pretty weird to do that. But are there opportunities for partnering? You've got the job order, they've got a candidate, or vice versa. Or maybe to do some overall employment branding for the value of working with staffing companies and form a cooperative of local staffing organizations. They're going to put a big social media kick on showing people all of the jobs that are available through local staffing companies and then featuring all of the companies that participate together in that cooperative. If you've got really good competitors that you like and you respect, pool your resources together to get more of that 4 out of 5 workers who don't think about you, or job seekers who don't think about you, to come your way. How about your recruiters? Can you train them? Yeah. How to write better job postings. Remember, a job posting is not a job description, it's a job advertisement. So can we teach people how to be good copywriters, how to focus on the what's in it for me in the very beginning of the ad, having a few bullets that are really the key selling points that they've pulled out of every employer, and focus on those before getting to the duties and the responsibilities and the required experience and work. How about finding ways to really maximize social media? Having recruiters individually build their personal networks, LinkedIn, Facebook, having them individually sharing more content, because when your people share content, it's going to reach a wider audience than just when your company shares it. And content shared by individual team members tends to get, and the data from other sites has showed us that they get about 8 times more engagement and 7 times more conversions when individuals, employees of your organization, are sharing content than when just your company is sharing it. So having recruiters build up big personal networks and then sharing information will get more response. Also, for recruiters, in a lot of kinds of staffing, particularly healthcare, the secret to recruiting success is the relationship between the recruiters and the contractors or temporary employees. So having recruiters that build strong personal brands, it helps them and it helps your business, because the candidates want to work with recruiters they like and that they trust. And the more visible those your recruiters are, the more they're going to be liked and trusted. Again, not to beat a dead horse here, but making sure recruiters are trained to regularly ask for referrals at every touch point that you have when you're communicating via email, via text, via phone, just to be working it into the conversation. Who do you know that you can refer? And then the recruiters, when they're working on assignments, to working with the clients to expand the talent pool. How can we identify those desirable traits versus the truly required ones? Now is not the time to be finding that purple squirrel, impossible to find candidate. Now is the time to say, who's everybody that might be qualified for the job? Because let's make the potential talent pool as big as we can. How about people with transferable skills? What other types of people have you been successful in this role in your company? So if they don't have exactly the right experience, what else can I look for? or creative opportunities to rethink how work gets done. Could we do 4-hour shifts instead of 8-hour shifts? Could we shift more some of the work to off hours, people who want to pick up some extra cash? Are there more opportunities for remote work since such a small percentage of temporary jobs are available for remote? All right, Matt, how about helping people to get found?
There's a lot of different ways people can get found. Obviously, job advertisements, increase the amount of jobs you're advertising, or try different job titles, try different, just local cities. If you need to have more jobs out there, your chances of getting found will increase. That's one way to look at this, and to increase that distribution of your jobs. There's free sites out there that still take staffing jobs. There's obviously the paid options out there with the right strategy, but also to think about not just job boards, but social media. Facebook can work really well for the commercial staffing, or LinkedIn. The industry has a pretty good handle on how to use LinkedIn and the types of jobs there. But making sure your jobs are in the places people are spending time. And we continually talk about referrals today, but we see them working so well. It's important to get back to using your former employees, or maybe your current employees, and making sure they know about your referral programs, or if you're changing your referral programs. As David talked about earlier, what can you do to build networks of referral sources? If it's a trade school, if it's a local church or religious organization, or maybe, I think there was a client we worked with last year that was talking about referral bonuses or a sign-on bonus, where it could be shifted to help frontline workers or essential workers, and that was getting a lot of engagement. So just thinking outside of the box there to get your jobs found and to get your referral programs found as well. More on the marketing side, there's a lot of the short-term and long-term, right? Search engine optimization, or SEO. It's not a short-term play, but if you continually improve your website, look at the data and drive more inbound links, or that means there are other websites linking to your website. That will help with the long-term. Actually, saw a graph today that showed it took about 6 months for SEO to really impact the company's website, but once we did the research for them, it really started to take off. The pay-per-click advertising side is more of a short, a quick fix, or an immediate fix, to where you can advertise on Google or Bing or on social with the right strategy to drive more active candidates, or even just help with the longer-term play. Social media we've talked a lot about with different content. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more on the next slide, but also with your online reviews, all of that social proof. And then in the real world, there's, staffing companies have been doing this for a long time, but we've gotten away from it in different parts of the country. And now as we're opening back up, what can you do with print advertising or media advertising? Job fairs, if they're still going to stay drive-through, or if they'll be getting back to on-site. Taking your recruiting to a different location, not just your office, but maybe an outdoor recruiting fair. Community service we've talked about a little bit, but also, business cards for your temporary workers, or apparel for your temporary workers. I work for staffing agency, or proud to work for, your staffing agency's name. That helps keep you in front of your current employees, your potential employees, maybe your competitors' employees. So when someone's ready to apply now, or in 3 months or 6 months, you're in front of them and they're ready to apply with you. The content we were talking about, make really great content. Obviously, you'll talk about jobs, but what else can you show about your culture that helps with that employer branding? Is it, the best post I've ever shared, I'll never forget this, my Taylor Huntley Marketing for a social media client, was of their guacamole contest. It was a healthcare staffing agency in California, the best post we ever got. And while it's not a direct post to job advertising or a job order, it does help show their culture, and it just connects how the team over there had a lot of fun, and it could be a great time to join them. Good education through your articles, blogs, all the different rich media content, and kind of building what I said, humor, entertainment. Show the personality of your brand. Not everyone's going to be, a very strict, serious brand. What's the voice of your brand? How do you convey that through your content? Active candidates can be found through hashtags. I think it's a really great way to find people right now. If it's looking for work, or need a job, or need a new job, search on social media and find those people. And or if there's in the comments of your job postings, we see people tag their friends all the time. Follow up with them and be proactive with that conversation. And obviously with your content, send it out through different formats and see what works well. If it's email, if it's direct mail, text messaging, or on the social media side, all these different ways to send your content in different ways. We don't know where people are spending time, so it's important to try different methods and see what works. Now, David's, I think, going to dig into a little bit of the website conversion paths.
Yeah, so one place that you're probably losing candidates you can place is right on your website. Most staffing companies, most recruiting firms see orders of magnitude more visitors to their website than people they ever talk to on the phone, ever hear from via email, ever step through their doors. So what we need to do is get more of the people who hit your website to take action, and that's called conversion path optimization. We want to take a look at where people are coming into your website, and more importantly, where they're leaving your website, exit pages. And then when we look at those exit pages, be testing ways to change calls to action, opportunities to take action, anything to make your site more engaging to minimize the chance that somebody is leaving before they've applied for a job or they've done something else to opt in some form of engagement from your organization. And then you want to look at every page in your website and say, what kinds of calls to action do we have? And can we expand the number of calls to actions? It's not just apply to a job or submit your resume. It's not just search jobs. It might be opt in for job agents, subscribe to our newsletter, download our salary guide. If you sit down with your recruiters and say, what are all the common questions we get from our temporaries, turn that into content and make it available as a call to action to get people deeper into your website and to collect their contact information. Provide different types of calls to action, buttons, text, images, fly-ins, pop-ups. I'm not a fan of overdoing pop-ups and fly-ins, but the more intrusive the call to action, the more it gets somebody's attention. So you want to balance that on your website. You also want to go through and look at all the response forms and simplify them. Best one is nothing more than an email address. Every time you get to more than 3 different fields you're asking for, you're going to reduce response. So let's say you've got a long application to fill out. We've seen as much as 95% abandonment on full applications. But what you can do is break it into pieces. Just get the bare minimum information up front so you lock that in and you know who the candidate is, then ask for the additional pieces of information. Give people a reason to act now, an incentive to apply today, an incentive to get a job this week. It can be a financial, it can be a non-cash incentive, but think about ways to create a sense of urgency. Things like, hey, we only have 2 openings that are paying $20 an hour. Call us today to be the first ones to get them. That's going to drive people to take action more than this job is open and people think they can apply whenever they want. Re-engage visitors. A stat that Matt gathered for us years ago was that a candidate who's coming back to your website a second time is 2 times as likely to apply to a job as the first-time visitor. So how do we use retargeting ads, marketing automation, email marketing, texting to get people who have visited your website, communicate with them, and bring them back for another visit? We've talked a couple times about that talent engagement. And so the industry leaders are Sense and Herefish that can do candidate automation. So you can look at actions people are taking in your ATS and then send out appropriate communication to build. Sense calls them journeys, but they're essentially a workflow that you're mapping out that allows you to have a better experience for the candidate, and so that every candidate gets more personalized interaction with your firm. On the marketing side, we at Haley Marketing just switched to a product called Active Campaign. Those of you who know HubSpot, that's sort of the market leader in marketing automation. We chose Active Campaign because for us, it does everything we need out of HubSpot at a lot lower price point, but it allows us to automate these touches, these workflows, these communication paths for people who are at different stages of the sales funnel or different stages of your recruiting funnel, from passive candidates to current temporary employees to former temporaries. You could create different automations that are appropriate to the relationship you have with talent. You can implement email and texting as part of this automation. And then don't forget, pick up the phone. I think Matt mentioned it. One of his clients, they just hired someone to call and be a concierge, talk to the candidates to deepen those relationships, to retain candidates, to get more referrals, to get more candidates reactivated. All right. So Matt, we're going to wrap up with a couple of final slides. What can everybody listening today go out and do on their own right now?
Great place is to improve your selling. And I think we talked about better clients, better jobs, higher level jobs, but use your data to your advantage. Conduct some analysis, find the right resources to help you conduct that wage analysis or your source analysis. That'll help you improve your selling to share to clients, to have your sales team have some information to take back and say, this is what we're seeing in the market. This is what we need to help you fill your open jobs. Training for recruiters is important. I think really focusing on the customer service aspect. We didn't get too much into technology today. We had a recent webinar on that, but if you can really focus on the boring, repetitive tasks and get your recruiters to spend time improving job postings or providing that amazing service, talking to the people who want to work for you. Don't just have them taking down jobs, posting jobs, doing a lot of repetitive tasks. Then they'll get into providing that service or sharing on social or working with your employees to share on social. Recruiter training can be really important. Your EVP, your company why. Why should I work for your staffing agency versus another staffing agency? Why should I consider the staffing agency versus the traditional, direct hire world? Why should I make that change? What's really unique about your organization? The social proof we've talked about through, if it's testimonials, reviews, videos, your employee advocates, that's the type of information we connect with. And if it's coming from a voice that's not just the company brand, even better. The social proof can work really well for your company. Use that positivity to your advantage. And lastly, here on this slide, the grassroots. What can you do in the local community? What's a low-cost advertising? Maybe a local weekly newspaper, just something to get in front of people, sponsoring a little league team, anything you can do to, stay top of mind so when someone's ready to work this summer or in September or whenever they're ready to enter back into the workforce, you're in front of them. An analogy I'm stealing from one of our clients who I think he admittedly stole it from someone else. Surfers can't just wait for that wave to be about a foot behind them. They have to be ready for the wave before it comes. So what can you do on your own, or what can you do with Haley Marketing here, as David's going to talk about, to be ready for that wave when it comes? Because candidates will come back to the market. We just have to be ready for it.
All right, and some specific things. There's a lot of ways that we can help, some paid services, some free. So want to just kind of talk about some of the specific things that we can do. If your website needs to be reviewed and improved, happy to work with you on improving that conversion path optimization. Matt is our guru of programmatic, which is really the job advertising management, not having people manually posting jobs, but using software, using an expert to control how the job ads get invested, how the spend gets invested, and then to make database decisions to maximize the return on what you're investing. If you need help with coming up with a value proposition, you're just stuck on coming up with the right words, we can help with that. Big one we're doing for a lot of companies and seeing tremendous results is ongoing SEO. If you are looking to improve where you rank to get found more frequently, our SEO team has just been killing it. And be happy to talk to you about an ongoing strategy, because SEO isn't a one-time I built a website and I optimized it. It really is a process of technical optimization and creating appropriate, relevant content that's going to build lots more traffic to your site, lots more traffic from the candidate side or from the client side. Content marketing, blogging, and Haley Mail. If you're struggling to have time to focus on content, most of the things we're talking about here are just really us supporting you with time and expertise. We have the time to create that blogging content. We have the tools like Haley Mail to support that content marketing. If you can't wait to get to the top of search results, then our PPC team, they just reinvented our PPC programs to come up with some simplified versions of paid advertising to increase visibility, build followers, retarget people, and drive more traffic to your website. Our next one's our Social Pro. If you need help managing social media, we have Social Pro and Net Social. This Thursday, we're going to be doing a product demo. So if you want to know what Social Pro is all about, our managed social media service, we'll be doing a half hour to introduce that service. So please join us on Thursday. And Net Social, if you've already got great content, but you just can't get people to share, Net Social is software that automates it. And last but not least, second last on least, this list is Video Now. If you're struggling to get video used in sales or video testimonials, this software makes it far easier to collect video testimonials without anybody having any video production skills at a really low cost per month. And then lastly, when you're thinking about the real world, if you want to get more involved, and I love Matt's Little League, we're desperate. We haven't been to any outdoor events in so long. Little League fields are going to be filled this year. But thinking about where in the real world you can do low cost marketing, if you need ideas for ads, if you need design work done, we can help with that. And I mentioned free. There's another way we can help for free. If you're looking for someone to help plan out some ideas for your marketing, our recruitment marketing team, Matt and Kathy, will be happy to schedule a call with you, talk about what you're doing, work through some specific strategies, share some best practices, and put together specific ideas for your marketing, a roadmap for you. And there's no cost for that. It's just give us a call at 888-696-2900 or shoot us an email, info@haleymarketing.com. All right, Matt, we've already gone over time, but if anybody has questions, I know we're happy to answer them. Please feel free to reach out. We will be more than happy to help you get through these recruiting challenges. I've been in this industry a long, long time, and I've seen ups and downs, but I've never seen the recruiting market change like it has in the past month. So if we can help, whether it's just with advice or with services to support your team, please reach out. And lastly, just to wrap it up for today, we have actually 2 product demos coming up before our next Lunch with Haley. So this week, we've got our Social Pro demo. So if you want to see how we're managing social media, we'll be happy to show you what we're doing. And then next month, we're going to get into our recruitment marketing services. So the specific things we do to help improve the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. And this week, it's on Thursday, and then we'll be doing Tuesday, May 11th for the recruitment marketing. For Matt and I and everybody at Haley Marketing, we want to thank everyone for being part of today's special edition webinar. Hope you took home a few ideas, and we hope to see you on our next Lunch with Haley event.